In this video, we will look at the socio-cultural adequacy of the Tulu Collective Housing Project. This project was inspired by traditional housing built in the Fujian province, which the developer used as inspiration to commission the architectural project to the Office of Urbanus. The characteristics of the traditional Fujian Tulus are strongly linked with a communal way of life. This feature would become an important aspect for the development of the architectural project. The architects developed several studies to incorporate the program of requirements commissioned by the client in the shape and formal characteristics of the traditional Tulus. Furthermore, it was expected that the future residents would come from outside, mostly from rural parts of the province of the country. Hence, the architects did not have the opportunity to organize participatory design decision meetings with future residents, as these were not known at the time of the design. This suggests that the project's relation with the local context was more determined by the physical and infrastructural features of the site rather than its socio-cultural characteristics. In other words, to what extent is the Tulu Collective Housing Project an adequate answer to meet the socio-cultural requirements of its residents and the context in which it is inserted? To answer this question, it is important to make sense of the process of rapid urbanization that characterizes many cities in the world, and particularly in China. At the time of the project, in 2006, Guangzhou was the third largest city in China and the largest in the southern part of the country, with a population of approximately 10 million inhabitants according to official records. In just 10 years, the city experienced a growth of 4 million inhabitants, which is a remarkable figure. In places undergoing a process of rapid urbanization such as this, one of the major challenges is to avoid the so-called cookie-cutter approach, in which housing is developed in similar forms and shapes. In this respect, the Tulu Collective Housing Project introduces a clear break with some approaches to the design of affordable housing based on endless repetition of similar blocks. Inspired by the vernacular Fujian Tulus, Urbanus developed an original variant to the perimeter housing block, creating an innovative solution where the central courtyard of the block creates an engaging communal space, activated by a small restaurant and shops. Through the configuration of the square block within the circular block, the architects created spaces that promote the social interaction of the residents, mitigating the potential alienation felt by many rural migrants that move to the big metropolises and live without any social network to support their integration in the city life. If we move from the scale of the whole block to the smaller scale of the dwelling unit, we can see that the architects applied only limited variations of dwelling units, but they included some flexibility. The most predominant type is the 40 square meter apartment that can be organized as a 2-bedroom family apartment or a shared dormitory space for 5 residents. The project also includes a hotel or inn on the ground floor of the square block, offering 18 rooms for temporary use. On the top floor of the circular block, the sloped roof increases the available ceiling height, offering the possibility of creating a mezzanine, which expands the usable area of the apartments to 60 square meters. The introvert configuration of the block is also reflected in the layout of the dwelling units. In the circular block, each unit has a balcony facing the surrounding public space, and the access is made from a distribution gallery oriented to the courtyard of the block. In the inner square block, the private balconies face the patio, while the circulation faces the courtyard, just like the ones from the circular block. This creates an interesting balance between privacy that each resident can have in their unit and private balcony, and the sense of social control created by the structure of collective circulation facing the courtyard. In addition to the shared courtyard created between the circular block and the square block, there are also other spaces for social interaction at the scale of smaller social groups. In the corners of the square block, there are open spaces where small groups can gather and socialize. These spaces are connected to the circular block by bridges that stimulate the connection between the distinct parts of the residential block. Additionally, the project includes other spaces for social exchange and community engagement, such as amenities located in the basement, shops and a restaurant on the ground floor, and a roof garden on top of the square block. These spaces contribute to stimulate a more inclusive living environment, avoiding the drawbacks of a monotonous repetition of similar blocks without options for social interaction that are often seen in most of the affordable housing projects developed for regions undergoing a process of rapid urbanization. Considering that the Tulu Collective Housing is a social housing project built by a private developer, there are also financial considerations that played a significant role, such as rental costs. The size of the dwelling units and the density of the project was instrumental to keep the rent costs low and accessible for low-income families. However, interviews with residents revealed that there are also people with higher income living in the complex. This diversity of socio-economic backgrounds is also an important feature to promote social mix and avoiding stigmatization and social segregation in residential areas. As we can conclude from the observations made in this video, the designers of Guangzhou's Tulu Collective Housing Project created an innovative housing type with qualities that mitigate the detrimental consequences of rapid urbanization and rapid demographic growth. They have developed an imagination of a housing project that could be replicated in other locations, suggesting how it could be included in the toolbox of designers, urban planners, and policymakers to create living environments that promote social sustainability and a more inclusive coexistence of different social groups and lifestyles.